Hi friends, it's Laura coming to you from the future. Just wanted to let you know that in the first half of the episode, I talk about the book Earthlings by Sayaka Murata, and I pretty much spoil the whole thing. So if you haven't read this book and want to avoid spoilers, please dip out at around 22 minutes, and you can come back at minute 35. Also, when I'm talking about this book, there are some pretty heavy topics that are covered, and it gets a little rough. So if you're not in a right place to hear about abuse or trauma-related events, please dip out, and we'll catch you back at minute 35. Enjoy the episode.
Welcome to our pod, and by that I mean on Wednesdays Reread. I'm Hannah.
I'm Laura.
And we are two best friends who usually do a deep dive into a new book series, one book at a time. But it is No Rules November and October, baby.
And December probably too.
And December. It's No
It's
Rules.
a No Rules year.
Fourth quarter, okay?
Fourth quarter.
Fourth quarter of
Q4.
the year. Q4, we're doing it all. We're having fun. We're loose. We're goose. We're out of control.
Nobody wants this quarterly report.
Oh my gosh, you should see my notes. Laura texted me. She was like, I could record a little bit earlier. And I was like, no. I have not finished the synopses. And literally, like every time I did a misspelling, I was like, it's too late. No turning back. No going back to change.
I mean, this is an audio format, so no one will see the format.
So
bad spelling. It's fine.
I also, in my first paragraph said, that is the moment I knew, a la Taylor Swift.
I love it.
But before we get into Hannah's Wild West notes, Laura, what are you reading, watching, and or enjoying?
So I guess kind of on the lines of Taylor Swift. So there's been all this drama. I guess not drama. There's been all this like hype and excitement around her possible relationship with Travis Kelce.
Yeah,
that she's been showing up at football games and everything, and how she's kissed him on the cheek. So it's obviously for real.
Well, I mean, they were pictured out on dates, but also...
Oh, yeah, they're holding hands and everything. Like, people saw them making out at an SNL party.
I was just like, Laura, there's like so much more. Like, they're obviously dating.
He was leaving her apartment.
Like they're dating, but...
He was seen going in the night before and didn't leave until the morning. So obviously...
Like, maybe they're just friends.
Yeah, they're just hanging out.
Slumber party.
No one's for sure. But also, before I get into what I enjoying, Hannah, did you see anybody like commenting on this whole relationship and saying like this is just a PR stunt?
Oh no, but if it were,
what a dumb PR stunt.
Who cares? Like,
they're extremely rich, and what do they care? They get tons of publicity anyways.
Apparently, like, sales for his this is where I'm like, T Swift fans, like, calm down five notches, because apparently like sales for his uniform, like, or whatever it's called,
his jersey,
for his jersey,
like 400%,
400%, and it's like, guys,
that's
you
dumb.
Don't need to own Taylor Swift's boyfriend's jersey. That's just too many degrees of separation.
No, like, that's dumb. And also, the NFL needs to reel it in a little bit, because they're like putting up stats about Travis Kelce, which is fine. They do that for players during games, but they're also putting up stats related to his performance if Taylor Swift is at the game versus not. So the NFL needs to take it back a couple notches. They're playing Taylor Swift songs at games, etc. Like, just take it back. She needs to, they both actually need to be like respected a little more in this relationship. Like, people need to be a little more respectful and like just kind of butt out.
Just calm down. Like, it's a budding relationship, and if it isn't,
like, leave them alone. Like, she's allowed to go to her boyfriend's football game and watch him without everybody like constantly like, oh my gosh, did you see that she was wearing blah blah blah? Like, who cares?
There's also like a moment of people who are very, very famous have got to be weird, because like you do not know how to interact in like normal situations. So people like were like, oh, she met his mom, and I'm like, yeah, she's a famous person who's not going to just go sit in the stands. She's going to go sit in a box, and if his mom's there, she's going to hang out with his mom.
Yes.
Like, in all actuality, she's just a woman who's meeting the mother way too early. Like, that's all it is.
Exactly. But it's more of like she can't sit down, like you said, she can't sit down in the stands with everybody else. Like, that would be a security risk.
Right.
So she obviously has to go up in the box with all the other family members and yes, that is really soon to meet the parents, but
Right. But like that's just
what
a
is she supposed to
reality.
do?
It's football season. Like he's actually very busy right now.
Yeah.
And even if it's a PR relationship, because like they have those, like there was a huge like Ben Affleck
Hmm.
when he was with what's
I
her
mean,
face that he was
Tom
in a movie
Cruise
with.
had lots of PR
Yeah.
relationships.
So like they
Scientology is all about
happen.
that.
But also like I don't know.
I just
Taylor,
think it would be dumb if it was a PR relationship.
well, I do know that the boyfriend before this one, not the Joe Alwyn who she dated for years, but the
Hmm.
one right before this, like there were some things being like, hey, he might be racist. Could she not?
Ooh.
And so it could be like, oh, I want a wholesome boyfriend. I will date him. But like also, I listened to a pop culture podcast
Uh-huh.
uh hosted by two people who like lived in Hollywood for a really long time. And they're like,
Uh-huh.
guys, sometimes hot people just want to hang out and make out, and it's not
Yeah.
that big a deal. And I'm like, yeah, that
And
actually makes a lot of sense. Like they're two hot
yes.
people who want to make out and have
Yes.
fun. Let's let them make out and have
I
fun.
I heard something talking about their relationship saying like, why would this be a PR stunt? Have you looked at the two of them? And the one woman was like, I would climb him like a tree. Like obviously she wants to date him. Like it's just
It's
leave them
fine.
alone, people. Leave them alone.
Right. And like, who cares? I just, yeah. I mean, you and
But
I
I've
just
been
spent five
seeing
minutes
this
talking about it.
everywhere, and I've been seeing all this stuff about them everywhere, and it even like I must have clicked like too many things on different social media, so now I just get tons of it in my feeds. But I did come across like a couple of clips from Jason and Travis Kelsey's podcast,
Oh, I didn't
and
realize they had a podcast.
they have a podcast because they mentioned Taylor Swift on it. So obviously that had to like immediately come into my feed. But it
Right.
was just a clip from their podcast. And I found Travis Kelsey's brother, Jason, to be pretty funny. And so then I came across he has a documentary on himself,
Oh,
Jason Kelsey, the older brother, because Jason and Travis are brothers who are both in the NFL.
oh,
They
okay.
recently played in the Super Bowl together.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah. I
it was a
recognize
big
Jason
deal.
Kelsey.
Yeah, he
Oh,
plays for the Eagles. And
yeah.
he is a very funny and seems like a really nice individual
Yes.
from what I can tell. But there was an Amazon Prime documentary about him and how he's really well loved within the Philadelphia area.
Yeah.
Like people say like this is their favorite Philadelphia sports player of all time.
If you
And
look
he
at
has
his
played with the
face, he's
Eagles.
adorable.
He is adorable. But he has played with the Eagles for a long time. This is his 13th year,
Mhm.
and that's a really long time to play
Yeah.
football, especially when you are like he's a center, so he's
Yeah.
taking a lot of hits and there's just a lot of physical things that are getting much harder for him. He talks about that a little bit in the documentary about how he has to be on like heavy pain meds to get through one game and
Hmm.
it's getting harder and harder and he's got 3 little kids and he's questioning every year like will he do it next year because he wants to still be able to play with his kids, etc. And he says too like he feels like so much pressure to live up to the expectations of the Philadelphia community,
Hmm.
and that was kind of sad to me. But he seems like even though he seems very like quick-witted and stuff, he kind of almost seems like he's got like a lot of pressure on like a lot of weight on his shoulders because
Yeah.
at times you'll just see like glimpses of him in this documentary where he has a really serious look on his face, like he's really feeling all of it, and I think he wants to like live up to all these expectations and really just be the person that everyone wants him to be. He wants to be the older brother that's supportive. He has done so much to help Travis too throughout their
Hmm.
lives, and he's always just kind of been the role model for his brother and everything. And now he's got his own family, and he even mentions at one point, like, yeah, I mean, I could get CTE, and I guess that's always a risk, but I guess if I've made all this money because they compensate us heavily, I guess if I've made all this money and I've supported my family and the people of Philadelphia think I'm a good person, I guess that's a good trade-off. And I'm like, is it? Is that a good trade-off?
Oh,
I'm sad for you that you
you
said
think
that,
that? Yeah.
but he seems and his wife seems awesome too. But it was a really sweet documentary. Like this, it was pretty well done, I think. For I'm not like a big football fan, but me
Yeah.
watching this, I watched this documentary and then last night I watched the Eagles game because I was like, they have to win because I really want him to win one more Super Bowl. Like I
Oh.
feel so like sad for them not
Laura's
winning this
now an
last.
Eagles fan,
I
guys.
guess I'm an Eagles fan, but the Eagles and Chiefs played against each other in Super Bowl 2023, and it was kind of a deal where I think Jason Kelce was hoping that he would win this Super Bowl and could retire.
Yeah.
And he was really debating about it, and he decided to play one more season. And so because he didn't win that Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And their team is really good and everything. So I'm hoping that they win, because after they lost that last Super Bowl, the documentary captures all of it. And you go into the hotel room after they show Jason walking through the red and yellow confetti because the Chiefs won, which is really sad, because he goes over and hugs his mom and is like, go celebrate with Travis. And the mom's crying because she doesn't know who she should have supported. And you're like, oh my gosh. Well, then he goes back to his hotel room with his family, and they are just like kind of panning around to the different girls and his wife, and then their 2 kids, because the wife was pregnant with the third at this point. Like, she was 38 weeks pregnant. And it's dead silent. Like, these are 2 toddlers. They are not making a sound because they are so sad that their dad didn't win the Super Bowl. And he comes in and they're all kind of like not saying much, and he sits down on the bed with them and is talking to the girls, and the one little girl says, Dad, you didn't win the Super Bowl. And he goes, yeah, I know, thanks for rubbing it in. And she says, Uncle Travie won. I didn't want Uncle Travie to win. I wanted you to win. I wanted Daddy
Little
to
kids
win.
cannot read the room.
And that's exactly what it is. It's like this 2 or 3-year-old just keeps saying this, and he's just like, oh my gosh, yeah, I know, Uncle Travie won. But it's a heartbreaking moment because she's saying that to him, and the way that he replies is probably like the most supportive and sensitive that you can be in a moment like that. He says, it's okay. We can be happy for Uncle Travie. Uncle Travie won today, and we can be happy for him. And I was like, oh my gosh, what a strong person to be able to, in that moment, have wanted to win the Super Bowl so bad and felt all this pressure from your community and like even like your family that they kind of want you to retire because they're worried about your health, to in that moment say to your family, it's okay. We can be happy for him.
Right.
Like, oh, and what a good brother.
I will say that like we do not talk enough about, I mean, lots of people do. There have been movies about it, about like concussions with like people in the NFL, but we do not talk about the career of NFL people enough. And for people who aren't in America, who aren't part of football, like football is a very hard sport that is huge, and a lot of people get harmed, and a lot of people who people don't mostly focus on as these star athletes who make the game what it is. A lot of people who are like centers or linebackers or like
any lineman
takes all the hits. They have a lot of issues with them, and like a lot of things have come out about like concussions and just how this is a very dangerous game, and we don't talk enough about it. So like having him be like a main focus in Philadelphia is huge, as someone who's like, I'm in pain when I go out on the field and I don't know how much I have left. And I like looked it up. He's a man in his 30s. Like
he's 35 years old. They say that his wife says that in the documentary. She's like, it's crazy that a 35-year-old man is in this amount of pain that he can't get up and down to play with his kids.
Yep. And like, it's the truth. We like push bodies to the breaking point, and we don't talk enough about that. We also do not talk enough about like how a lot of these people who are like obviously linebackers, they get a lot of money for playing in the NFL, and they are not taught how to use it. I actually studied this,
and that was another thing that is mentioned in the documentary, actually, because he's talking with other former NFL players, and they're all kind of showing a little bit of concern for him because Jason Kelce has all these other things that he's got his hand in. Like, he owns a cattle ranch. So in the summer, he's going and learning about like grazing, and he learned to castrate calves and stuff like that. And he's doing all these other things. He's like gardening. He's doing this. He's doing that. He's got the podcast. And the one player said, I'm kind of worried about him that he'll be retired and doing all these different things, and he won't be good at any of them, and he'll just be kind of throwing his money at things, and it's going nowhere. But they get paid like $30 million a year, and they're just kind of throwing it at things, and they don't know how to manage money.
it's because the NFL never taught them to, because a lot of them are like overlooked, or they have to do like deals to do things, or they have to have like further careers. But like there are a lot more players out there who just retire kind of into obscurity. And we don't talk enough about how we don't protect them. Like we just
Mm-hmm.
throw money at people until they are no longer useful for us. And then a ton of them go bankrupt because during this time they are usually supporting family members or people in their
Mm-hmm.
community, and they want to help them, but like they're not taught to like protect their money and make sure they're investing it properly and making sure that they have enough
Mm-hmm.
on return to make money once they are done. Because again, a lot of athletes, I don't know if this is the same in around the world, but a lot of athletes in America are kind of taught to just go after the money and the fame while they can, because like it's not going to be
Mm-hmm.
forever, but then they aren't taught what to do at the other end of things, and it's bad. So like
Yeah.
I appreciate the documentary being made about this beloved player who's like shining a light on it, because oftentimes like centers or certain types of players are not allowed to have that spotlight, and so
Mm-hmm.
it's good that they're doing that, because a lot of
Yeah, and
times
I
it
think
is
it's
the
a lot of
Travis
times
Kelce's.
it's the
It's the
quarterback
Travis Kelce's
or the wide
quarterback.
receiver,
Mm-mm.
those type of people. You don't hear as much about the linemen. I think maybe Jason Kelsey, just because he is so well loved in Philadelphia,
Mm-hmm.
that he's kind of become a star in his
Yeah.
own right.
And it
Whereas you
helps that
probably
he
wouldn't hear
has a
about
brother who's a quarterback, because that
his
helps
brother is not a
too.
quarterback.
Oh,
His
oh,
brother is a tight end.
oh, I'm sorry. Oh, oops, then that's on my but
But
yeah,
he's like the best tight end in the
in
NFL,
the
I
oh, okay.
guess.
That's
But
well,
I
that
think
shows how
what
much I know about this.
really kind of made them like the big stars was that, first of all, they're brothers who were playing
Mm-hmm.
in the NFL, and both of them had previously won Super Bowls, and it was
Mm,
anticipated that they were going to both be in the Super Bowl, and then they were.
mm.
So this was the whole documentary kind of leading up to that.
Okay. Well,
But
that's
yeah,
fair.
the CTE thing I think is not talked about enough.
Mm-mm.
And for people who don't know, like CTE is super serious. Like all the head trauma that they take, like they are at increased risk for ALS. NFL players are at
Mm-hmm.
increased risk for ALS, and they develop Alzheimer's earlier a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
And autopsies of like former NFL players have shown that like 99% of them have CTE.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a phenomenal amount. So it's more than likely, if you are taking any kind of hit whatsoever, you in the NFL at this rate, you were probably going to have CTE.
Mm-hmm.
And I know like Jay Cutler, who was a quarterback for the Bears, he has recently come out and said like, yeah, I was getting like 50 concussions a year, and
Yep.
I definitely have some ALS symptoms.
Yep.
And that's terrifying
Mm-hmm.
that we are not protecting people in this way. Like to even have somebody in a documentary, I don't think it's a good trade-off to be like, you know what, we're heavily compensated. I guess it's fine if we develop Alzheimer's in our 50s. That's not okay. Like
Yeah.
that to me is the NFL is profiting off of people who are young and not
Not
educated
well trained.
enough
Yeah.
on what the effects of some of these things down the road could be. And I
Mm-hmm.
get it that they're probably signing off on a bunch of crap and they're saying that they're educating them on it. I think it's different when you are just out of college and going to play for the NFL like you've dreamed of since you were a little kid versus being,
Worked hard for, like,
yes,
this is
versus
like
being somebody who's 50 and like, well, I'm not going to be able to interact with my grandchildren
yeah.
because I sustained too many concussions earlier
Mm-hmm.
in my career. Like
Yep.
that's terrifying to me.
Bet you guys didn't know that Hannah and Laura knew so much about football.
We know a lot about football.
I didn't
And
know Travis Kelce was the tight end. That's on me. But
I know a
like,
lot about football. I watched that Eagles game yesterday. They played the Miami Dolphins, and
I watched
it
the
was a good
Packers
game.
game. We are not doing so hot, but you know what? We were doing really well for a really long time, so that's on us. Um, I'm a huge Packers fan, guys, but I lived in Chicago for many years, and like it's not always fun because people would be like, "Oh yeah, you want to give me a hard time," and I'm like, "Not
Chicago
really."
fans are intense. Chicago
Chicago
fans are
fans are
intense.
intense, but like it's not fun. Like I would be like, it's not really fun for me to like rub in our wins. Like you guys are having a hard couple years.
Couple
Like
years, Hannah. It's been decades.
I know exactly. So like
They
it's not
haven't
that
won a
fun.
Super Bowl since the 80s. It's been a long time.
So, it's just not as fun to be like, ha ha ha. Yeah, the Packers are better. Like,
I wouldn't say that I have any kind of team loyalties in any way. besides maybe slightly leaning towards Illinois teams because I live in Illinois. But even then, it's not that much. It's like I have a couple t-shirts, but and I have probably too many t-shirts for somebody who does not care that much about sports. But I will say one of the most fun experiences like being in Illinois was recently when the Cubs were doing so well. And like, I'm not a huge baseball fan. I'm not a Cubs fan, but when they did so well and then they were in the World Series, that was a really fun experience to be able to watch the games on TV and to be excited about it, to have something to talk about with people. So I get when people are really into a team or really into a sport like this, because it is fun when you are able to be excited and have a team that's doing really well. Because I totally had that feeling when the Cubs were doing so well in 2016.
One of my favorite stories is I have an uncle who's a huge Packers fan and just very boisterous and in your face. And he was drunk on a train in Chicago, and he was a Cubs fan and he was among White Sox fans. They were like, "Oh, don't worry. Once winter comes, it's all one big happy family." And he pulls out his Packers wallet and they're like, "Oh, here." And he was like, "You know what's wrong with all you Bears fans? None of you know your fight song." And like his whole thing is like the Bears fight song is pretty like long. And he goes, "And do you know what happened? One person started singing and the entire car started singing in unison the fight song."
They knew
everyone on the train knew the fight song.
I think I know a little bit of it, honestly.
Yeah. But and then they were like, "Why? What's the Packers one?" And the Packers one is like the dumbest thing. It's like do 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 go Pack go, and like that's the fight song. And so he sang it, and then everyone laughed because it was like obviously like all these people do a very intricate fight song, and the Pack one is 3 words.
Funny.
Like
that's funny.
So it was very funny, but that's
because it's like bear down, Chicago Bears, lead the way on the something on the way to victory.
Yeah, you guys have like a national anthem worth of a song, and we have like we're
it's actually kind of a cool song.
So fun time. So I'm glad that you watched that and enjoyed it.
I would recommend that documentary, honestly, because again, as somebody who's not like big into sports, I thought it was really well done.
Okay.
And that they kind of hit some things that I thought needed to be talked about. And especially like having some of the former NFL players be like, yeah, I'm kind of worried about him and this or that, and addressing his health and the relationships that he has with his family growing up and how he is with his brother, etc. I thought it was a really well done documentary.
That's
so
good.
Definitely check that out. The other thing that I was reading, I need to talk about it because I really just feel like books are not marketed the right way at times.
Oh yeah.
I tried talking to you about this a little bit, but I read Earthlings by Sayaka Murata. And this author also wrote Convenience Store Woman. And
okay.
So I think this author is known for her like really shocking work. And when you look at the cover of this book, there's like a cute little hedgehog on it and like little polka dots and everything. It was described as a shocking sci-fi. And I was like, oh, I've been on a sci-fi kick. This is a short book. You know, I could read a shocking sci-fi. What I got was definitely shocking.
Okay.
It was not sci-fi at all. And it was extremely depressing and again, shocking. But it was more of a lit fic about a woman's PTSD, honestly.
Yeah.
Trigger warnings, I will look for the timestamp on this, but trigger warnings for sexual abuse and for child abuse going for the next like 4 minutes or so, I'm going to say. So jump ahead if you cannot hear these things. And please do, because this is a rough book. But the main character in this book is abused by a teacher, sexually abused by a teacher, and ends up, for whatever reason, they assume that they are like an alien that is on Earth, and that they are not meant to be here, that they're supposed to go back to their home planet. Their cousin that they meet up with over the summer is also an alien, and they are both trying to get back to their home planet. But the way that the abuse of this girl is very graphic, and it's very hard to read. But then when she tries to confide in people like her parents, she is chastised, and they not only don't believe her, but they abuse her emotionally and physically because they think that she's lying and that she's an ungrateful daughter, et cetera, et cetera. So she becomes further entrenched into this belief that she is an alien and that parts of her body have been broken because of the abuse that she has undergone.
Mm-hmm.
And she ends up going, the teacher who has been abusing her threatens her and says that she has to meet back there at a certain day. And I thought we were getting quote unquote lucky in the plot, because she was, instead of being available to meet up with this teacher, her family had to travel to their family cabin where they basically their family cabin where they meet up in the country because there was a death in their family.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm ruining the whole plot of this.
Yeah, that's okay.
I just need to talk to you about it because, and I feel like I need to explain. So she ends up going to this family home out in the country, and her cousin is there, and she basically convinces her cousin that the two of them need to have sex so that her body will be used goods, and it won't be good for this teacher, basically, is what I think she was kind of hoping.
Yeah.
So the cousin agrees, and they are caught in the act, which ensues a bunch of chaos ensues.
Yeah.
And the family is like horrified by all of this, and they end up taking her back home to the city where they live, and she's like they're basically like they excommunicate her from the family, and they never talk to the family again for a long time and everything, and it's just considered absolutely awful because they had sex as children also, and then again their cousins.
How old were they?
Like I want to say they're like 11 or 12. So very young, and she is again called to this teacher's home. He like calls her on the phone after this horrific thing has happened. He calls her home, speaks to the mom, and the mom's like, "You ungrateful daughter, you have to talk to this teacher, and this is a nice teacher, blah, blah, blah." Once he's on the phone, he says disgusting things to her and tells her that she needs to come over. She goes and ends up murdering the teacher.
Oh, God.
She goes early, ends up murdering the teacher with garden tools. But while she's like doing this, she's basically dissociating. Like she doesn't even realize what's happening. She thinks it's like a blob, and she thinks that she's in her alien form at this time, and that she's doing this or that to protect herself from an evil witch. And so it jumps ahead after this happens to her as an adult, and she's married someone who they met online and agreed upon a contract that they will get married to basically just get their families off their backs. And then they will have no like physical or sexual contact at all. Because they both are of this belief that the society that we live in is basically just like a factory, a baby factory, which I think there were some interesting commentary on like our society being a factory, the way that we have to like push certain ideals on people, that people have to get married, that people have to have babies, all that's a whole separate thing. But I'm more getting into like the disturbingness of this. So she has told this husband about like her trips to her family home in the country and how she loved them and everything. He has built them up so much that he is just like extremely excited about this place and wants to see it so bad. And when he loses his job, he is in a very depressed state, and she offers to take him to their family home. It becomes kind of an issue because they find out the cousin is living there that she had the sexual encounter with. And the family is like, "Oh, well, it's probably okay now because you're so much older. It shouldn't be an issue." They end up going there. It's kind of an awkward thing. Like things are weird, and they end up leaving for a little bit and then coming back. And it ends up that the cousin and her husband all agree to be these aliens and that they're going to live at this home. Nobody knows that they're there at this point. They've assumed that they've all left, but they all agree to be in this home, and they all are trying to teach each other how to be fully alien, and they're having sexual encounters with each other. They're like doing a bunch of really like disturbing things, honestly.
Right.
And then it gets to the point where they are cannibalizing each other, like as they are alive, like eating pieces of each other.
Oh, wow.
And then they're found at the end in this state, and she like mentions that she thinks that they're no longer Earthlings. They've transcended all of this. And it's like, this to me, this book was more of a depiction of someone dealing with severe trauma.
Yeah.
And literally like not being in a state where they even know what's going on. Like, that's kind of what I was getting from this book, where it's like, is this actually happening to this person, or are they just like thinking all of these things, or like where they're like I said, dissociating, where some of this is happening and then other things are not? Because once we get towards the end of the book and some of the cannibalizing happens, I'm like, is this actually happening, or is this something that the girl has dreamed is happening, or is because they've dealt with so much trauma that they don't know what to do. But incredibly dark book. And I just feel like because it wasn't, I'm not going to just blame this bookstagrammer that was like, this is a shocking sci-fi. Like, this book has been marketed as like, pick this up if you want a light read that's shocking. Like, no, this is not a light read. This is not a light read at all. This is very dark, very difficult. And I just feel like we need to maybe I've heard some people be like, oh, why are there always content warnings in the front of some books? Like, we need them, because something like this was very like misrepresented to me for sure. But I'm sure other people got into this similarly, where they're like, yeah, it's spooky month. I could read something kind of shocking, a shocking sci-fi, and got into something that you were totally unaware of what you were reading.
Well, that's like, I feel like sometimes people do not understand the difference with it, where it's like, oh, she thinks she's an alien sci-fi. And it's like, no, it just sounds like this is lit fic and like disturbing lit, which I like. I actually am a huge fan of disturbing lit fic. Like,
I mean, I would say like magical realism. Okay.
Okay.
But
yeah.
I think it trends more into lit fic horror than it does sci-fi. Like, no.
Yeah, it's just really strange to say that that's sci-fi when it just doesn't sound. And I think that like some people don't understand literary fiction, or like weird literary fiction, and they don't know how to describe it when they see it, because they just haven't read. Because I remember reading like I think it's called Pizza Delivery Girl or something, and they're like, oh, such a good, like, but they kind of just talk about the plot,
because you talked
Pizza Girl
about it on the podcast.
Yeah, and like Pizza Girl is about like, oh, you know, a young pregnant girl makes a strong connection to a woman. And I'm like, yes, but also like deeply psychological and kind of like upsetting in lots of places, and very tense and like moody and atmospheric. And I think sometimes people see like bright cover, oh, falls in love, LGBTQ. And it's like, yes, I understand why you say that, but also no.
Like, you're missing a lot of things here.
Like it's just very strange. Yeah.
Yeah, I do think though that Murata is definitely extremely creative with her writing. Like, there are themes here that I think definitely need to be explored more in writing that we don't get as much. Like I said, the questioning of family dynamics and the roles that women have to play, because it's mentioned a lot by like other characters in the book, like, oh, it's so nice.
Short story
it's so nice that you guys have this relationship, that your husband actually does stuff. And it's like, okay, yeah, we do need to have people mentioning that more, that like, yeah, husbands should have an equal role in the household, or that women shouldn't always be expected to just like be baby makers or whatever. Or that they even have to like get married to get their families off their back, that kind of thing. So I do appreciate the questioning of conventions, and honestly, like, I do think there is a place for I'm not saying this is a bad book. I do think there's a
No.
place for this kind of writing. And I think that things that like depict trauma in this way are extremely interesting, but I'm more taking issue with the way that this book has been marketed,
Right.
that we maybe needed more content warnings with this. We maybe needed people to be less like, yeah, this is a thriller like The Silent Patient. It's like, no, it's not.
No, it's
This
not.
this is not in the same grouping as The Silent Patient. It's just
Jeez.
not.
Yeah.
So yeah, I I really question the way that we're marketing some books now. And after I read that, I had to immediately follow it with a rom-com that I listened to on audio because I was like,
Yeah.
I need something happy.
I would too. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that.
So then I listened to The Kiss Curse by Aaron Sterling. I won't talk about it very much, just that it's fall themed. It's the sequel to The X Hex, and I
Oh,
liked it
good.
more than The X Hex, but it also may just be because I needed something happy and it delivered on being something happier.
Normalize ranking reviews in the moment where you look back on life and you're like, why did I rank like that book so high? And it's like, because I felt like it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah.
But Hannah, what have you been reading and watching? I've talked so much.
No, that's okay. I'm actually glad you did because I don't really have that much to talk about. I'm reading some like bigger books right now and I haven't had time to read as much because podcast things and also
Mhm.
traveling and helping my aunt and uncle are moving out of their home. So I've been helping and looking through like lots of their history. Laura saw I'll post it on our podcast page. My aunt and uncle had like a fern that they've had for 35 years that they got for their first wedding anniversary and they gave it to me. And it's just a giant fern that now lives in my
That's so
living
cool.
room and it's adorable. I felt very touched that they gave it to. Well, I asked for
Yeah.
it. I'm acting like they gifted it to me. I specifically asked for it. When I specifically asked for you for it, but I asked
You
for
cheated on me when I specifically asked you not to.
Laura and I will never not quote that when it's
I love
available to
that
us.
one.
I love that quote. But I asked for a portion of it because they've like split the fern many times in their life.
Mhm.
But I was like, oh, could I have a clipping of it? Because like it's very important to you and it's very important to me. And they're like, oh, just take the fern. So my poor fiance had to put it like was the size of an actual person in the backseat of our car.
Here's what
So,
I'm picturing is Hannah being like, thanks so much. Let me go hug the paw, put that in the car.
yeah. Yeah. I was just like, Paul, can you put this in the car? And he was like, I thought we were trying to fit the canning stuff. And I was like, we were. Now it is fern. um, so I haven't had too much time to read, which is bumming me out a little bit. I think I'm going through a little bit of like a October slump.
Mhm.
For numerous reasons, but I read one of my 12 for 12
Oh,
because
yay.
Laura talked about it last week. Well, no, because I had actually pulled some from the library. I think you and I like you were posting about it or something happened through osmosis where we both got on a kick for that. Um, but I read Garden Spells by Sarah Addison Allen. It was okay. Like it was the perfect
Mhm.
breeze of a fall book that technically takes place during the spring in the book, but like it has all the fall feels. It's
Is
a
this like a fantasy or?
so it is like a very it's like you know those books we would have loved in the 90s. It's like almost a Hallmarky version of Practical Magic, I would say.
Oh, okay.
Where you
I
have
wasn't very
this
old in the 90s, so like the books I liked in
that's
the
fair.
90s were like
Very
Clifford.
different. Okay,
So,
fair enough. Fair enough. That's on me for saying that. But like I would say it's like a lighter Hallmarky version of Practical Magic.
okay.
Where it's like it's kind of about like the Waverleys who are a curious family and they have this giant beautiful garden in the backyard and they have apples there that are supposed to tell your future. And they like kind of hoard the apples. And you have Claire Waverly who's lived in the home like her mother was kind of like a wandering soul. And like Claire grew up with a lot of like trauma and like being unhoused in certain times and like having to live with the mom. And then when the mother had her second daughter, she moved them back into the Waverly place and then the mom disappeared and ended up dying. And Claire, when she came to the home, like felt very much at home there, loved it so much. But then her sister Sydney, she kind of resented her entire life. And so like there were certain parts of living that like she kept Sydney out of, like the grandma, learning how to cook with the grandma, all that kind of stuff. And she admits that throughout the book, but like
Mhm.
uh Sydney kind of left and never looked back, but she got into an abusive relationship and she has to return home. And it's just kind of about them learning to move past things and learning to fall in love. Um, I don't. it was like it's a book that I was like, yeah, I like this just fine. You know how like you and I have the books where it's like 3 stars is a good rating. It's just like not your favorite book. That
Yeah,
was this book where I'm like, I don't know if I'd recommend this to anyone, but like I had a good time and I'm not disappointed that I read it because like the tree is very funny. It wants to tell people its future, so it just chucks apples at them a lot. And the
that's
girls
cute.
are like, bury those apples. You don't want to know your future. And so like and they
Cute.
kind of talk about like why and there's like interesting moments where poor Sydney, like her childhood boyfriend like comes in to talk to her and he's like, I'm married. I'm happily married right now. And she's like, who asked? Like, I didn't need to talk to you. It's like, so there are some wild moments in that, but it's very chill. It's very like two sisters falling in love. I could have done without there's like an insta pregnancy spoilers for Garden Spells, a very unknown book that
This
I mean
random book.
it has like 980 or 98,000 ratings on
Oh
Good
wow.
Review, so apparently many people like this book. Uh but it's very cute, it's very light. But just I probably won't continue reading those books, but good for fall if you're looking for
Yeah.
something that reminds you of practical magic and is very lighthearted after you read a bummer of a novel like Laura.
Yeah.
This would
If
have been a great palate cleanser.
yeah.
So I
I
enjoyed
yeah,
it.
if you read Earthlings, follow with the garden spell.
Follow with garden spells. Uh, so yeah. But that was what I've done. And then I've been listening to Interview with a Vampire. I'll just say that because
Oh, okay.
spooky Halloween. That's been my audiobook because I've always wanted to read it and then I just like never wanted to pick it up. Um, and so I started listening to it and it's good. Anne Rice is a messed up lady.
Interesting.
Well, just like it has stuff like they turn a child into a vampire, and she's like a 5-year-old who's just like, I
Mm.
am undead and I'm really upset about it.
Yeah, you
And
would
then
be if you're 5.
this guy like shames her all the time where he's like, oh my gosh, she has so much hatred in her soul. And it's like, you turned her into a vampire when she was
Yeah, I
5.
wonder why.
Like, come on, man. And then he's like, I guess she has a right to hate me, but like, why? I just all I do is love her. And I'm like, Anne turned her into a vampire when she was
You're
5.
forgetting a key
Yeah.
thing that happened here.
And so, like, small spoilers for Interview with the Vampire. It's been around for forever, and there is a movie about it that I'm gonna watch after this, obviously. But like, there are so many moments where they meet all these vampires, and all these vampires are like, "It's horrifying that you made a 5-year-old a vampire." And he's like, "But I did it, and I love her." And it's like, yes, but like,
Gosh.
also we might want to murder her because she's a 5-year-old vampire. And he's like, but you can't do that. I love her. And it's like,
Oh my
well,
gosh.
it's very bizarre, but like I know this book is very famous. I'm like, oh, this is like very dark and also kind of homoerotic for
Hmm.
early 90s books.
Hmm.
He'd be falling in love with many male vampires. So
Hmm.
it was a good time. I think it's a TV show, right? Oh, I guess that's Struck Work. So we won't support that right now. But yeah, just kind of enjoying Interview with a Vampire right now.
Okay.
So yeah.
Cool. I dig it.
But those are my reading, watching, and or enjoying. But another thing that I read, watched, and enjoyed was Among Thieves by M.J.
Among
Kuhn.
Thieves.
We are covering the second half of the plot, and guys, it's about to get messy
Oh
because
yay.
everybody just wants to get a quill and betray everyone else around them.
Yeah, we've reached the portion of Ocean's 11 where they're all like, we're no longer a team. We're all going to turn on each other.
I'm really here to just make a Julia. Oh my God, what's her name? I just blanked on her name. I'm just here to make her fall in love with me. Who's the love interest in Ocean's 11? What's her
I
name?
have no idea.
Oh my God. Julia Roberts. I'm just here to
Oh.
get Julia Roberts to
Oh,
fall in
okay.
love with me.
I
Not her actual name in the movie. I would never remember that. It's
oh.
just Julia Roberts.
I was gonna say I
And
don't
George
know the
Clooney.
characters' names. I've seen that movie like once, like when I was in high
Oh,
school. I don't I've
wow.
not got a lot of
Didn't
connection
watch a
to
lot
that
of
movie.
Ocean. I've watched all of the Ocean's movies.
And
Weird that
I'm happy for you.
they made Sandra Bullock George Clooney's sister in that franchise.
What a take.
What a take. Um so anyway, we left off as they all headed to the island.
Mhm.
We're on the island of misfit adepts. They have a lack of personality. We are in Raya's
Poor
POV
people.
as they enter. I'm sorry, that was pretty bleak for Island
These
of
poor
Misses.
people.
These poor people. Um, we are in Raya's POV as they come into the island. They had to forge docking information. They're shaving Raya's head to make her look like an adept and putting, symbols on it.
Yeah, because they want to like sneak in because there's going to be this big auction and they want to look like the nobles. So they're like,
Yes.
we're going to show up with our own adept servant.
We are so fancy. We have Raya the adept.
Yeah.
Little do they know that is factual.
Which do you think that it's strange that they never like question like how is she so good at some of this stuff? Like, could she be an adept?
Well, they don't think so and it does go into that in this section.
Because I mean, like, she doesn't have like the blankness that a lot of the adepts have, but at the same time, like, we know that the what are they called? The guardians for the island. Gosh,
The disciples.
The disciples. Thank you. The disciples. They have all of their cognition.
Well, they kind of talk about how it never would have crossed their mind because none of them have experience with disciples. Like,
okay.
There's a moment, especially in this section, where Raya has like a disciple and an adept in training. So the adept still isn't blank faced yet because they haven't been sold or haven't like passed graduation, I guess. And everyone is super confused watching people with powers have a personality. Like Ivan is really skeeved out by it. Tristan's a little bit weirded out by it. And Raya's like, yeah, they forget that these are people. Like they haven't recognized it and they're not used to this, but I know. So like it does kind of go into that and I think it's just so well known that the guildmaster can get an adept from anywhere and no one is an adept without the guildmaster knowing that it just wouldn't even cross their mind that she has powers.
That's
but
fair.
Anyway, so yeah,
it's been a minute since I read the book, so you're gonna have to remind me some things.
And I just did a really misspelled portion of the synopses, so I'm much more refreshed.
That's why I'm like, what, the guardians? What are their names? Disciples, yes,
the guardians of the galaxy. Well, what a bunch of assholes. They go into the arena and they are introduced to various royalty. I did find this section funny because I was like, I will not remember any of these names. I am so sorry to you all. It's also very Hunger Games style because like there's a joke about how ridiculous the clothing is, how it's just a bunch of rich people battling it out to buy these adepts.
Well, and it is really sick too, the way that they have these fighting rings for the adept servants and everything. And it's just like, this is a perfect example of rich people being too rich and being awful.
Capitalism kills us all. But there is a king who we should know because he's the one who sent them after the quill, and that is King Shadowwood, who everyone kind of notes is like off his rocker. And like he's the one who probably killed his son. And then Raya looks over and she's like, wow, Tristan is gripping his fist and just looking that king very directly, like straight at him. And I said, this is the moment I knew, a la T Swift.
I totally glossed over that. I was just like, that did not occur to me.
Did it register? It was like, literally, it was like, he murdered his son. Tristan looked really upset. I was like,
Tristan
well, I wonder what
person.
happened.
Okay.
I was like, oh, okay, Tristan, sure. How did Raya not figure it out? Raya, you're actually super like noticeable. It's just you do not give a crap about Tristan, so it never occurred to you to like care.
But Tristan might be an important person.
No, he just has a huge crush on me. She also feels guilty when the purple people walk in, which is just the guards who are dressed in purple that Evelyn was supposed to be a part of, but the purple people, just like Laura. Call back to all of our good fans. And then the guild master walks in. We go into Ivan's POV during the guild master's like introduction and him being like, let the games begin. Ivan also notices that Tristan's being super weird, but also like fidgeting and shifting. And Ivan is like, dude, just chill a little bit.
A low profile. Like, I made these cool disguises and you're going to ruin it for us.
They have a long day of tournaments that are kind of boring to them, but also it's just a way to show off. Like Ivan kind of clocks it where he's like, this is just a way to show off adept skills for the auction the next day, and it's to show that the guild master is going to pick all the most powerful ones to make sure he maintains control over everyone else.
Right. So even though it's supposed to be a quote unquote fair auction, it's definitely not. And the people that are the most skilled are definitely not going anywhere off this island.
This is also the moment where Ivan kind of gets skeeved out by the fact that the adept have zero personality. And he's like, how does that happen? I do not understand. And he wonders what happens to them after today that makes them void of personality. The new disciples get announced. Ivan's right. It's always the most powerful ones. And then they all fight over who has the harder job moving forward. Because Ivan and Nash are like, we're kind of nervous. And Evelyn and Raya are like, oh my gosh, are you kidding us? You just have to go to a party. And so that night, Evelyn and Raya have to go do recon and try to get disguises for them for the next day. And Ivan and Nash have to dress up and pretend to be nobles. Nash is terrible because she actually is a noble person. So like she's very offended by everyone and everything in there. And she ends up kind of telling on herself by defending adepts as people. And then these nobles are like, excuse me, adepts aren't people. Maybe you are suspect.
And she draws attention to them. And Ivan, I remember this part because Ivan's kind of like, you should have just kept your mouth shut and
just
quit saying things.
Stop it.
Stop calling humans.
They also at this point discuss Abner Grayson. Hey, they said Raya's last name was Grayson in the last section. Who purchased adepts illegally and slaughtered them. And they kind of talk about it not as like a tragedy where many lost souls happened, where it's like, oh God, that was a lot of money. They burned down the entire compound. Nash asks Ivan how he got linked up with Clem, and he's like, same as all the others. And she points out she doesn't think he's much of a gambler. Raya and Evelyn have to sneak on a ship to steal some dance costumes. Evelyn continually calls Raya a monster every other sentence in this section. Like, she's just so mean for someone who's definitely only there so that she gets to keep Raya. It's like, you.
So, Hannah, I don't know if you have picked up on this, but we have already talked to the author at this point. I'm pretty sure, didn't MJ say that she liked the character of Evelyn?
I think she
Evelyn
did.
Was one of her like favorite characters. I feel like I remember that sticking out in my brain.
Yeah, I think she said she likes having that kind of character have to like mix with everyone else, but I'm not sure if that was what. But
because for me, this character was grating, and I am just someone that does not enjoy that character. I think it very much, like I've mentioned this so many times, but it very much gives me the vibes of Captain America and the Avengers being like, guys, we have to follow the rules. And it's like, we're beyond following the rules. Stop and quit pushing our buttons at every turn.
Well,
and that's like Evelyn for me in this book.
I think it mostly grates on me because I know she traded Raya for her help. And so I'm always sitting there like, you're not on the moral high ground. You're treating this person like a commodity with her person. And then she's always like, you have no loyalty to Callum Clem. And it's like, Clem just traded Raya for you.
Why would you assume that she would be loyal to him? Like, no.
It sounds like he's not trustworthy. So no, Raya does not trust him. She's given you all the clues, Mr. Snowman. Right. It just doesn't make sense. But yeah, Evelyn can be kind of grating because she's just sitting there like, you're a monster. Yeah. You're a monster. And it's like, you're kind of a monster.
I think we've had a couple of interviews though with authors where they've mentioned that like a similar type of character is their favorite. And I'm always kind of like, I'm shocked.
I think it's because sometimes your messiest character is your favorite.
Maybe it is because I'm always just like, that's always the character that I'm like, not like, I don't like them.
No, thank you. So Evelyn's kind of like, you know what? Raya's finally like, look, just because you have a shit father doesn't mean you get to act like this. And Evelyn's like, I don't have a shit father. And she's like, didn't he abandon you because you just got kicked out of the guard? And she's like, well, yeah, but that doesn't make him a shit father. And she's like, it kind
these
of
are the
does.
Things where it's like, Evelyn doesn't get it.
Well, Evelyn is just nobility. Like she is an insert for like nobility who is like, well, you are lesser than. And it's like, no, I'm just poor. I do all the same things you do.
The same
I'm just poor.
Do the same stuff, but
I'm just
missing a key difference here.
And it's your privilege. You're just privileged. It's always a redhead, guys.
Well, Evelyn's hot. It's always hot redheads.
Well, thank you, Laura. I'm so privileged and I just don't know it. So anyway, I also love this section because Raya's like, look, it's okay. You have a shit dad. I have a shit dad. We all have shit dad.
Shit dance for everyone.
But she has a flash to her dad killing a kinetic adept and giving her the blood, kind of. I got a little bit confused by how she got the power. Did she have to drink the blood?
So
Was it infused in her? Yeah.
I want to say that it was consumed.
Yeah. I want to say
I
it was consumed as well, but I wasn't
I
sure.
I can't remember exactly, but I want to say that it was consumed. I'm remembering that at first.
Okay.
It might have been an infusion at some point later on, but yeah, Raya's having these flashbacks now that are
PTSD.
horrible, horrible, traumatizing stuff. We just talked about trauma. Like, here's some more of it.
Well, and you know what? Maybe you shouldn't call a girl a monster when her dad forcibly made her consume blood. Maybe we should just be a little bit more sensitive, Evelyn, okay?
Yeah.
Uh, but
I mean, I guess Evelyn doesn't know about that at
I know,
this
but still,
point, but still,
she should just assume. You
Evelyn
can tell.
needs to be
Well,
nicer.
also, Evelyn will be like, man, she's such a monster, but look at all the scars on her back. And it's like, maybe she's had
Yeah,
trauma.
yeah, exactly. It's like, what about all the scars are? Monster. Like, what?
Moms, you just traitor. And it's like, well, someone definitely harmed this woman. So maybe
Yes.
you could just calm down.
Like,
Uh,
okay, Mr. or Miss Insensitive. Like, come
uh,
on.
well, so she has this like flashback. She sees her dad and then her being able to move the axe, and he's like, I knew it was possible. And then the guild master comes in, kills her father. He like calls for her help, and she's like, no. And
Right.
she leaves and runs away and escape as her home burns. So her father was the man they were discussing in the last
Mhm.
section. Tristan is supposed to be there to create a diversion, but he's no longer there. And they're both like, well, we have to move forward. So
Mhm.
Evelyn makes a diversion. Raya sneaks on and grabs a few costumes, and suddenly the door opens. And then we shift on over to Nash, who reveals that she thinks that her and Callum are more colleagues than her working for him. And I'm like, oh, honey, that will only work as far as when you double cross him.
Right.
I don't think
I
he
thought that
sees
was a
you
very
that way.
naive take where it was like,
Well, Nash is a little bit naive. She's sitting there like,
mm.
we're all here for the quail for Callum, right? And they're all like, none of us are doing that.
Which,
You
now
did not
that
get
I'm
the
thinking
memo.
about it, is Nash the only one that doesn't have like a side
She's literally the only one who doesn't have a
plot?
side. She's just there for Callum Clem, like she
Oh my
promised.
gosh. Okay. I don't know why I didn't think of this before, but it's just now clicking to me. Yeah, Nash is the
No,
only one who's like pure and doing this for
she is
Clem.
the only noble person, and she is still the smuggler, which I love that
Oh
take, where it's like she's
gosh.
a noble smuggler, okay?
Uh-huh.
They realize that someone is calling the cops on them. They're not called cops, but like Ivan's like, we have to make a run
The
for it. And
needle guard.
they do a quick change and head out towards the ship again. On the way back, they see Tristan being dragged away by guards. Ryak is caught by a man on the ship where she's stealing the costumes from, and she's about to kill him, but she thinks about Evelyn and she can't do it. And she's like, I'm
She's
not a
got in her head.
monster. And then she gets into a fight with him, and Evelyn has to save her. They make him look drunk, so no one suspects anything. And I was like, I still would believe someone if they're like, I caught someone on the ship, and they're like, oh, you seemed a little sauced, man. I don't trust
Right.
you. Like, no. But anyway, they make him look drunk, so no one suspects the thing. They then head back and find out that Tristan was taken. They took him to the manor, and Raya wants to leave him, but everyone else wants to go save him. Poor Tristan. She's just not that
Right.
into you.
I it's definitely one of those moments where you're like, why does he have a crush on her? Because she was literally going to leave him.
She has shown no interest, man. Like
Yeah.
none. She's just like,
Ooh,
it
it's
sounds good to
rough.
me. It's rough out there. Uh, but the next day they decide they're going after him and they're gonna make it work. Evelyn and Raya dress up like dancers, and they're waiting for the person to create the distraction, but they are one man down. Uh, the girls head back for the dancing stuff, and Evelyn says that Raya is heartless a whole bunch of times. Evelyn is trying to figure out Raya and thinks she's on to something, but she's kind of alarmed by her scars and can't quite figure out what makes Raya tick or why she's so powerful. Then the dance instructor immediately calls them out on like, she's like, I do not know you. Go get a disciple.
Mhm.
Nash is hiding black balls into people's pockets, noting Tristan would be better at this. And then they suddenly hear the call for intruder. So it's now or never. They need a distraction. Nash kind of runs towards an area and then hits a capsule that they were carrying, the little black balls, and everything goes up in smoke. And then everyone else starts jostling around so that when it breaks the capsules and people's pockets, they make more smoke.
This is like
Ivan,
Batman level stuff.
it's
Like,
very good. It's very cinematic. Yeah, you're right. Like you can
yeah,
see it happening in your head.
exactly. That's why I'm saying it's like Batman level because I'm just seeing like the little things being dropped, and then all
Mhm.
of a sudden, like everybody like coughing.
And then she kind of sees Ivan freaking out, but he throws an axe at the guildmaster. The guildmaster is able to stop it, and he calls for the guards to start looking for a woman.
What?
What? Raya's freaking out and she starts to fight. She and Evelyn escape, and they keep the people out. They start running towards the tower. Raya is sensing people coming and making them hide, and Evelyn's like, "How did you sense that?" And she's like, "They ran by earlier."
Have you ever noticed that none of her explanations are that good, Evelyn? Like, come on.
I mean, Evelyn did technically figure it out, but not really.
Yeah.
They
She's
get
right
to
on the edge.
she is packing axes, but she brought nothing for Evelyn. I did find that funny where she's like, I
I
brought these
know.
axes. And Evelyn is like, you brought me nothing? And she's like, no.
I should have planned ahead.
They get to the tower and Raya climbs up with Evelyn watching at the door. She finds the quill in a bell tower above the bell. And it seems to be writing in like red, and she sees all the adepts written down on a map. And then she hears a sound and she throws an axe automatically and then pulls it back with her power right before it hits Evelyn. It
Evelyn
cuts to,
thought her.
and Evelyn is like, I knew it. Uh, this is also a moment where Raya went to destroy the quill and she was getting so close. And like there was part of her
She
that wanted the power, so she was holding back and she was
right.
considering what it would mean.
Yeah, in this moment, Raya is definitely kind of questioning, should I really destroy this quill or should I become all powerful? It's
Yes.
it's kind of her Gladriel moment.
It is her Galadriel moment. And then Evelyn had to ruin it by being there.
Quit,
She could have been the
quit.
bigger person. You just didn't give her the opportunity. Nash is stunned that the guildmaster knows that Raya is a woman because everyone knows the Butcher of Caramere, but not that she's a woman. All hell is breaking loose. Nash makes a run for it into the servant hall, tracing the lines from the blueprints that they got to get to Tristan. She opens up the dungeon and dun dun dun, Tristan is not there. Evelyn is pissed that Raya would destroy the quill for her own gain.
Which is dumb. Like why would
Well,
she
she
be
doesn't know
mad
what the
about
quill
that?
does. She just knows that she's destroying it. So she technically
Okay.
doesn't know what it's for.
She
Doesn't
just thinks she's
understand.
risking the mission at this point, and she's like,
Yeah,
"How
for her
dare you
own.
risk
Yeah.
the mission?"
This is where she's like, don't you have any loyalty? And it's like, you don't have any
No,
loyalty. Like, you're fine.
nobody's got any
Um,
loyalty here.
so they start to fight. And it's a pretty cool fight scene around the
Mm-hmm.
bell where they're like kind of almost falling off and catching each other. And then suddenly Rafferty swoops in and grabs the quill. And Rafferty's from the Saints, if you guys do not remember
Yes.
from the previous episode. And she spirals down the tower over to where Tristan is helping her and looking devastated. And Raya just looks
Yeah.
at him and does not care about him. It's just like, well, that's the
She
game.
sees red at this
Yeah.
point. It's just like,
And then kinetics come running towards them as Raya escapes the towers without Evelyn. Ivan is still in the hubbub. He has no idea that all of this is going on. He's planning to desert everyone when he gets the quill. But then the guildmaster sends people to the tower and Ivan runs towards them. He runs into Nash. He finds out about everything. And then they run for the ship, but Nash is super loyal. And she's like, we can't leave the others behind. And he's like, we're not. We will just trust that they get to the ocean, but we need to leave now because we will be stuck here. And so they run towards that. Evelyn escapes the tower and she hides. She hears the guildmaster call Raya the Grayson girl, saying she doesn't know everything about the quill. She watches the guildmaster approach Raya with his people. She says the quill is gone, and he says she doesn't know who she's working for, and they don't know about her. And if they know about her, they will hunt her. He is able to overtake Raya with his power, and he goes to kill her. it's pointed out that like Raya's not that strong. Like she
Yeah.
is okay, but she's not great. And then Evelyn runs and throws an axe at the guildmaster, and he stops them both. But Raya is able to wobble the weapon, distract him, and almost kill him. So they're able to distract him enough to get away. They run from the kinetics, and then Raya clocks the mast in the distance, and they jump off the mountain. Raya gets them to the ship with Evelyn being a bit hurt, and they all say that they lost Tristan, who is now with the Saints. Um, and then she's sitting there and she's like, why was Tristan here? I mean, he seems so frou-frou and he never fit in. And they called him the like saint of soaps. And it's like, yeah, he's a prince.
Because super
Uh,
clean.
they ask about the guildmaster knowing her and her axe. And so she tries to distract them by being like, hey, I know what the quill did. And they're like, that doesn't answer the first question.
I love that though, because she's just like the worst at deflecting and they always fall for it.
I know. And then they're like, she's like, look, I used to trade at depths. Okay. So like he wants me dead. He didn't like me doing that. That's why. And they decide to go back to Kerouac because Asher from the Saints will want to deal with Tolliver Shadowwood there to like kind of show up Callum Clem kind of thing. He has a big ego. Nash kind of cuts over to Nash, and Nash is like, okay, so she obviously wasn't like trading with the depths, right? And Ivan's like, right, totally. And then they're like, do you want to make a side deal, just the two of us? Like, should we only work together? And then because we don't trust her and like we don't want to give it to Tolliver, we're gonna find someone else to give it to who's like more worthy. And they're like, yeah,
Also,
let's do that.
Nash just like immediately being like, the only person I can trust is Ivan. I'm like,
Ivan, you can't trust Ivan. And then we cut on over to Tristan. He is beside himself. He talks about how the Saints know who he is, would have turned him in, and he
don't know yet.
He's stuck with Rafferty and hates her. And then and then he's like, they know my name. Dennison Shadowwood. And so he's Tolliver Shadowwood's son. And we find out later that like his dad was definitely gonna murder him. Like at first I was like, really? You were just that scared of running away? That he was like, my dad was gonna try to murder me. And I was like, okay,
It's like,
maybe
okay, well, that
you
makes
had a
sense.
reason. Like but anyway, they get back to Kerouac. And he like meets with Asher. Asher takes out the quill, and Tristan realizes what it does, and like it's because there's blood samples in it that like tracks the adepts. And then Asher takes him as prisoner to bring back to his father. And it's like, Tristan, why did you trust them?
Like Tristan, like here's the thing, nobody can be trusted in this book at all. Like
But
absolutely no one.
especially not those people. Nash and them return home, and they find out that Clem was never arrested, but he is pissed that they kind of left without him. And he's like, look, and they tell him about the quill. He's like, I know how to get it back. And he kind of warns the butcher because he is definitely sick of her being around.
Did you think that maybe, so I kind of thought at this point when they were like, oh, Clem was never like arrested or whatever, I'm like, okay, that kind of makes sense. But I was kind of thinking that maybe there was something like more nefarious going on, that he had planned something while they were gone. When he was like, oh, I'm kind of mad that you guys did that without me. I'm like, are you? Or
I feel like
I don't trust you.
I don't trust anything he says. I feel like, but I also think he's one of those people who like always pretends it's planned, where he's like, oh,
Okay.
yes, you left me behind. Gave me time to make my other plan ready.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
This
is just sure. Look, I have pretended many a time that I understood what people were talking about in the room. I'm sure Callum Clem does it too. We all do it. Like, and so then they like he has a plan. He knows what they're going to do to try to get the weapon back. And then as everyone's leaving the room, he's like, Ivan, I have a project for you. And Nash is like looking at him and she's like, can I still trust Ivan? Yes, I can. I trust it.
No, you can't. You just think he's handsome.
I know. And it's very funny. And so they kind of talk about how the game has changed. Nash does talk to Cal about it and is like, hey, we have another plan. We are going to double cross the other two. Evelyn is kind of doing recon in the lottery. She's real bad at it. Like Evelyn is terrible about doing recon. She looks terribly conspicuous. And she's just kind of the worst. But she goes and she submits a kinetic into the fighting ring to fight against the next player. And so we find out that this is going to be Raya. They're going to send her down to fight. And this is where I was like, do they all know that Raya has powers, or are they just expecting her to like fist fight
I
her
think
way?
I think they're just like, well, who's got the best shot? I guess her. So, because I didn't think they knew at this point either that they were just kind
Right,
of like, well, we've passed her off as an adept before, and she's fairly skilled, so hopefully she can make it out okay. Like,
right.
that's quite a risk.
But she gets her into like the top seed by like promising that she's super strong and super powerful.
Yeah, just a lot of BSing, basically.
Yeah. And so he lets her do that. And then she also sees that Raya is sneaking into the fighting ring to hide things. So then we kind of cut on over to Ivan. Uh, he's forging some things, he's doing some things, he's making disguises. He feels very ridiculous. And he feels like very foolish. He's trying to think about how to save his brother and how to get the quill, and like he kind of has decided like it can't really go to a king. It's not going to be good if it gets into anyone else's
Mhm.
hands. um and but he's rethinking all of his stuff, and like, does he let his brother go? Can he go save him? All of that kind of stuff. um and he does feel bad about the butcher and the captain, but he's like, I can't trust them because the butcher is the butcher and the captain is in love with her, and it's obvious.
Oh, good Lord.
um so he's like, yeah, I guess I just have to trust Clem.
Nash.
Yeah. And so Raya has to hide a bunch of different weapons in the fighting arena. And she's like kind of dressing herself up, making herself look like a broken down kinetic, pretty much, like kind of marred,
Mhm.
kind of beaten down. Everyone comments on it where they're like, wow.
Well, because like they cover up her one eye to make it look like her eye's missing, and
Mm. And so she's kind of going into
which
the
they don't
fighting.
just say wow, they're quite rude actually, because don't they call her ugly and stuff? And they're
Yeah.
like, idiot, you look terrible, you're so ugly. You'll do terrible in there.
And she is drinking the blood, because we have a moment where she flashes back to her dad making her drink the blood, and she
Yeah, I was
has
gonna
to
say
like,
I thought it was drinking.
yeah. And so she gets put into the fight. She's definitely not strong enough, but we find out she had to go later in the seed because that's when the guy will be there to make the trade-off.
The king.
The king, sorry, Tolliver. And so she has to be there and ready to go with weapons. And then she's watching, she's fighting, she's trying her hardest. Someone's screaming for her as she's about to die because the kinetic is just too much. And then we cut on over to Tristan. He's with Rafferty and the crew. He has to go see his dad. He really doesn't want to because his dad wanted to murder him.
And this is where
Um,
it gets cool because we get a little more overlap into
yes,
the points of view where it's like we end at one point and then it's like we pick up in the next viewpoint and it's like, oh, well, this was like a few minutes ago. Something
seamless.
happened.
Yeah.
And so I like that.
And so he's down there, he's tied up, he sees Evelyn, so he's like, oh my gosh, they made it back. That means like she's somewhere. Um, and he's just kind of watching for things, and then his father comes in. He's listening to like the trade-off and all the different things going on. And then he realizes that Raya's in the fighting pits, and we find out he's the one who screamed no. And Rafferty's kind of like yelling at him. uh he is able to escape, and he like wants to go after and save Raya.
Did we get to the part with the quill yet?
Well, his dad is showing off the quill with his father, where his father is
Okay.
looking, he pried off the edge of the quill. And you find out there's kind of this hidden panel underneath it,
Yeah.
with a collection of reddish brown fingerprints, and there's 7 fingerprints. So his like he realizes it's 7 fingerprints for the 7 guild masters of Themor. And so this couldn't just find adept, it could do so much more than that.
Like
um
basically even the ones that are like servants away
mhm,
from the island are probably under the control of the guild master, so it's all just a big ploy.
mhm. And then his father sees him and he's like, is that you? And he's like, I'm not your son, I'm not anymore. And then he put his thumb down on the Declan Day's quill, and then his head explodes. He's kind of able to see all of the different things going on. And he's able to stop the adept that's going after Raya. But he can also feel that the quill sapping his energy, and he's trying really hard not to let go, but it's like not really working for him.
Mm-hmm.
He's only able to like save Raya in that moment.
Well, because the guildmaster is an adept, so because it's like they basically said at one point, like, oh, it's pretty sick that the like an adept would sell out their own.
Yeah. And then the quill rejects him as his master, and it kind of like falls from his grasp, and like rolls on the floor, and there's confusion. He knows Raya's still alive, so he feels better. And she is able to roll away from the kinetic and get away. And then all of a sudden there is black air everywhere. So they just and they hear fire being shouted. And Tristan's dad is like screaming for the quill. And Tristan, he is like running from him to get away from, or wait, no, he passes out. So the last thing he felt before sinking into senselessness is his father's iron grasp on his wrist. And then we have Raya, who's charging into the smoke, grabbing her weapons, trying to find the quill. And then she's kind of realizing that Declan Day had figured out how to sap the humanity from his own people and placing the control inside an oversized writing stick. So she's figured it out. And she's pretty pissed about it. And then Evelyn's helping her fight. They're trying to get away through the chaos. And then they go to fight the Shadow Warders. And Evelyn and her are fighting together. And she's fighting for like everyone. She's like, Raya at this point is like, I am noble. I am going for all of the people who have lost their personalities and lost everything about them.
Well, because honestly, she does kind of personify all the different groups of people.
Yep. I agree. And so Evelyn's like, get the quill. I'm on your side. And Raya keeps screaming. I feel so bad because Raya keeps screaming at Adepts like, I'm just here to help you. Can you stop fighting me?
It's so hard because they don't know.
I know. And so she like goes up against a shadow warden, and she is able to pull the quill away from them. And so Evelyn like, it's like, do you trust me? And she's like, I don't trust anyone, but I guess I have to trust her. And so they make their way out of the like the bedlam that is happening. And Raya and Evelyn are like, Raya asks Evelyn if she's willing to commit treason with her. And so they run away and they destroy the quill. And Raya feels very, very much at peace. And they're going to go.
So they think.
And then they said they're going to go after the Shadow Woods to get Tristan back, whatever we're supposed to call him. And they're like,
well, okay. It's funny because they're like, do we really have to get him? And Raya's basically like, I guess if we're the good guys now, we gotta go get it.
They're like, okay. And also we really hate his dad, so sure. And the epilogue is a total turn of events where we're not ending on a happy note. Because we end with Callum Clem. And he is on
that
board
D-bag.
with Ivan and Nash and Clem's two adept servants. And he is looking at the quill because they forged another quill to take it away during the bedlam. And they're like, well, we gave the fake one to Raya, and he thinks that he'll probably be able to control it or use it to his advantage. And he can't wait to become incredibly powerful.
I knew that there had to be more to it because that was pretty anticlimactic breaking of the quill here. Wow, I thought that would have been a bigger deal.
And it starts racing and running and doing all the things. And it talks about like he noticed that like Nash is in love with Ivan. And Ivan would want to follow and try to find his brother Casimir. And like he didn't.
He knows all of their backstories, and he's totally manipulated all of them.
Yes.
And knows all of like their interests and like relationship dynamics, and totally just uses that to his advantage.
And he sees himself as the new ruler of Thamor. I did find this funny because I was like, Callum Clem is like, well, listen, Tristan was weak. And I'm like, yeah, I'm sure you're all powerful for the quill, Callum Clem. Go off, king.
But I also wonder, is there like maybe something we're missing here? Like, is Clem maybe an adept?
Maybe.
Because it feels like Clem maybe knows more about this than we think. You know what I mean? So maybe there's some adept that we don't know
almost
about.
Like he can sense things. Ooh.
Yeah.
Laura, what did you think of the book? Oh, well, I guess we're doing close-up calls. This is just the plot, but overall, did you have a good time?
I loved it. It was a romp, and So easy to read and just extremely atmospheric. Like we were talking about just that one scene where I was like, yeah, this is like Batman-esque. Pretty much all of the book, you could picture it and could just like literally, it's almost like watching a movie.
Oh, yeah. I adored this book. I thought it was super fun. I'm so glad you brought it to my attention. I'm so glad we got to read it. This was like different from us. I feel like you and I aren't usually
we don't do a lot of like
books.
No, we don't do like a lot of high action and like heist type things.
Right.
So I thought this was fun.
But yeah, I loved it overall. And next week, guys, we're going to talk characters and themes in Among Thieves. And I think it'll be a ton of fun because, as we saw, Laura, not a fan of Evelyn. So
no, I'm not a big fan of Evelyn.
Join us next week. And if you guys are having fun with our No Rules November in October and December, please make sure you're rating, reviewing, and subscribing or telling friends about this podcast. It helps. We are an indie podcast and we love doing it. It's a ton of fun.
Word of mouth is huge. We appreciate you listening and telling your friends.
Check us out on Instagram. Check us out on X, unfortunately.
All the social media.
Blue Sky. TikTok. Hannah has to get back to posting our TikToks, but check us out there because it's a ton of fun. And just make sure you're following along with the blog. Everything we're doing tons of fun stuff. Check out our reading schedule on ourpod.com and join us next week. Bye.
Bye.